Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we're going to jump ahead a little bit to spring. We're going to be making some quilling paper cherry blossoms. So for the petals, I have a light pink from Quilled Creations, and for the rest of the flower, I have a deep red from Craft Harbor. I also have my basic quilling tools here. I'm going to be using a needle tool. If you want to use a slotted tool, you are welcome to. I also have my tweezers, a little bit of Elmer's glue wall in my needle nose container, and I'm going to have my small scissors because we're going to be making some fringe. I do also have my parchment paper covered workboard because we're going to use that when we put our flowers together. Then as an optional part at the end of this video, we're going to be making little branches to put our cherry blossoms on. So I have some 16 gauge wire, and I have some brown floral tape, and I have some little wire snips to cut my wire. And then I have a hot glue gun, and that's how we're going to attach the flowers to the branches. And that's all optional, but it's fun to make kind of 3D floral arrangements sometimes as well. So to start off, we're going to make the petals for these cherry blossoms, and these strips are pre-made to be 17 inches long each, and we're going to be using 2 of them for each flower. So I tore off all the edges, and we're going to add a tiny dot of glue to one end and carefully attach the end of the second strip to make one super long strip. Press that together for just a moment and try to keep it as straight as you can. And after a second, you're ready to roll. So this is just a matter of rolling the entire strip from end to end. And like I said, I am using my needle tool here, but if you want to use your slotted tool or an automatic quilling tool will work just fine. Just bear in mind that when you're rolling very long strips, sometimes they tend to get a little unruly and tricky to roll once you get past a certain point, so that's why I take mine off and just finish it by hand. Whatever you're comfortable with. We're just looking for a very tight coil, so that means that we're not going to let it open up at all once we take the coil off the tool, or when you're done rolling it by hand. You're not going to let it open up and relax at all. You want it to stay nice and tight. So we are now at the end of the roll and going to add a small dot of glue to the tail and then press it to seal. And eventually it will cooperate. There we go. And now we're going to form a very basic petal shape. We're going to dome it very slightly by pushing on one side and then pinching one end. It is easier to do the dome first and then to pinch. You'll get a more of a teardrop shape that way. And then I like to kind of push the bottom up towards the point just a tiny bit. It makes sort of an S shape, but it makes a little bit more of a realistic looking petal than just having the straight dome and the pinch. Add a little bit of glue to seal, and if you have a paintbrush, that's always nice to brush that out. I just used my finger because I didn't grab a paintbrush today when I was getting the video set up. For each flower, each cherry blossom flower, you're going to need 5 of those petals. Once you get all of those made, you can start forming the base of the flower. And to do that, it's just very simple, as long as your petals want to cooperate with you. There we go. We're just going to add a little bit of glue to each of them and then just glue them in a 5-petal shape. There's not really too many options for this part. They just kind of go where they want to go. If you want to use tacky glue to make these set a little bit faster, of course, that is fine. There is going to be a little bit of a hole in the center of this flower, and that is okay. We're going to cover that up in just a moment here with this fringed piece we're going to make now. So I have this darker red, this deep red it's called, and I have about 7 or 8 inches. I'm going to fringe this slightly with my small scissors I do have a bunch of other videos on Fringe and the different techniques to do that. I always come back to just using scissors and doing it by hand. I know it looks like it might take forever, but it really is just a couple of minutes. You just want to make small little cuts, not going all the way through, which can be tricky on this 1/8 inch wide paper, but it's definitely easier than some of the other ways out there. So after you have fringed your entire piece, you're going to wind it up on your tool of choice. Bear in mind that the fringe paper does get a little bit more delicate, so you do want to be careful as you're rolling. This is just another end to end. Get it all rolled up. This is going to be the center of the flower. I'm not letting this unravel as well. This is just big enough to cover the hole in the center of the petals that we just made when we put the petals together to make the flower. We'll get that pressed down gently. And I'm not going to worry about fanning out the fringe at this point, just because when I put it on the flower, it might get a little bit mushed again. So let's just not bother with that just now. Just put, there we go, on camera, a little bit of glue on the bottom of your fringed center, and using your fingers or your tweezers or just drop it on there. But however you get it there, you just want to put it in the center of the flower so it covers up that small opening between the petals. So that's what we're looking at so far. And we're also going to add the little stamen that are in the center of the cherry blossoms. So we're back to the deep red paper. I'm going to use my small scissors again to cut this strip in half to make a really skinny strip. They do sell 1/16 inch paper. If you're going to use a lot of it, by all means invest in that. If you just need a little bit, it's definitely easy to just grab some small scissors and take your time and cut it down. So after I cut it, to make skinny strips, I cut about 1 inch and roll just a little bit to make this sort of letter P shape. And I'm going to add a dot of glue between the roll and the rest of the strip so that stays where I want it. And I'm going to use my tweezers as a little clamp just to get that to set for a second. And that is all you're looking for to add to the end of the flower, this last part here. You're going to need probably about 8 of those. You can make them slightly different lengths. You can also sort of curl up the bottom a little bit, just get that tail to relax and make it look a little bit more lifelike. They wouldn't be sticking straight up in the air. They'd have a little bit of a curve to them. Now that my center has set, I can open up that fringe a tiny bit. I don't want it to be too open. A little pile of glue on my workboard. And it's just a matter now of gluing the little stamen right around the center. So I just dip the tail in a tiny bit of glue and get them to stand up there. You definitely probably want to grab tweezers for these because they're very fiddly and very small. And sometimes when you put one on, just like I did there, knock down the one next door. It's not a bad idea to kind of go on opposite sides as you're putting this on. So one on the top part, one on the south, east, west, just to kind of get them a chance to set before you add one on right next door. The center doesn't have to be completely covered in these. They're all the same color, so you're not really going to notice if there's a gap, but I would try to have one right next to the next as you go all the way around the center. It will make it look a little bit more realistic. We're just going to finish those up. Definitely tweezers are your friend for this part until we have enough surrounding the center where you can still see the texture of the fringe, but there's no big gaps in the little stamen. Now, if you're using your cherry blossoms for a card, you don't want a lot more height to them, you can stop there and be done, and they're perfectly lovely on their own. We're going to be making these look a little bit more 3D. So I am making a back to the flower, which is what would connect the flower to the stem. I have the deep red paper again. Those strips are 24 inches long, so I just rolled one all the way from start to finish in another tight coil, domed it slightly, put a little bit of glue on the inside. Again, a paintbrush would be helpful here, but I did not grab one today. So brush that out with some glue to have that set, and then you're going to glue it to the back of your flower. So it's going to give it a little bit more height there. So if you're, like I said, using these right for cards, you don't have to do any of this part. This is completely optional. So there's the glue to the back of the cherry blossom. And the next thing we are going to do is to, drop it. There we go. Next thing we're going to do is just also mention that you can make cherry blossom buds with these as well, because maybe not all your flowers are open. You're going to make the petals the same way. I have 3 of them here, and then I just shingled them around each other and put them in a base like we just made for the other flowers. Anybody wants to see exactly how that's made, let me know in the comments, and I can make a quick short or something to show how to make a flower bud just like that. So I have 5 flowers here all together, 4 fully formed and 1 flower bud, and I'm going to make my branch now. I have, this wire is 16 gauge. So remember, gauge of wire is the thickness of the wire. 16 is good for making these flower stems. 18 is fine. I wouldn't do anything on either end of that. It gets a little bit trickier to work with. And the color doesn't matter, by the way. We're going to cover this up. I have about 6-7 inches there. That's going to be my main branch, but I'm going to have little branches coming off of it. So here is about maybe about 2 inches, doesn't really matter. And that's going to be one of the branches I have coming off. And I have, at some point here, the end of this floral wire. There we go. So floral wire by itself isn't very sticky, but when you give it a little bit of a tug, I guess it releases whatever glue is in there. I'm sure somebody can give me an exact way to phrase that in the comments. So if you're an expert on this, please weigh in. But from what I understand, it kind of just releases the glue, and that makes it stick to itself. So then I am wrapping the long length of wire. I could have started from one end and worked my way all the way to the other end, but I found that that gets a little bit chunky when I start adding the other branches. So I like to do it in sections. I added enough twisting and pulling until I got to one end. And then I'm going to wrap this other small piece and attach it. So here, give it a little bit of tug again to get that glue going. You can cut this and do it in sections as well. I didn't get to that point just yet. It's going to probably become necessary to cut this in a second here. Same thing, starting on one end, and you can see how I'm not super careful with this. I'm not worried about it not being wrinkly and being super smooth, because being a branch, sometimes they're a little bumpy, they're a little knotty, they're not super smooth. It is okay for this part. I get this wrapped, turning and pulling until I get almost to the end, and then I'm going to hold it next door to the long branch about where I want it. It's okay if it's not going as far out or in the exact right direction yet, because you can manipulate this wire once you get it all attached. It's not a permanent direction. You can bend the wire and do whatever you need to do. It's getting a little tricky, so let's snip, and holding them together with one hand, wrapping with the other. Trying not to keep it too bulky in one spot. So that's why I'm going to add a little bit more tape as I'm going down than I need. So just finish this up, wrapping, pushing any little air gaps out. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's wrinkly. Just want to get it so there's not any huge bumps. in one spot. This is a little bit too much, so let's go ahead and snip that off. And we can move on to the next section and the next little sub branch coming off. Don't worry about any bends in here. There's no super straight branches out there. It's okay. So a little bit of a pull again. And this time let's go ahead and snip this off because we're going to be kind of wrapping around that first small branch and it can get in the way a bit. So moving up a little bit and get that started. And now we have to kind of work our way around that other branch. Like I said earlier, if you want to wrap your entire long branch first and then just add your small branches on, go for it. Mine got a little bit too bumpy that way. Completely up to you. It's okay if it comes off like mine just did. Just put it back on and keep wrapping. And we're going to speed this up just a little bit here. Just because you probably get the picture at this point. It's just about wrapping and pulling the floral tape and trying to make it smooth-ish, but not super smooth. And just getting the wire covered until we get to the other branch we added. And then we're just going to wrap that. So now it looks like one branch coming off of the other. And same thing, another small branch added to this part. Same thing, a little bit of floral tape. So I think you probably get the picture at this point. So we're going to move ahead to our next part where the branch is totally done. I have the main branch and then I have 3 little branches coming off of them. So you can put 4 flowers on all together. So I have more than 4 at this point because I do want to make sure that I use that little flower bud. As far as attaching your flowers to your branch, you can use tacky glue if you'd like. That will definitely stick. You can also use hot glue, which makes it stick a little bit faster, but you do end up seeing the glue a little bit more, I think. That's what I'm going to use here, just in the interest of time as well. So I add just a tiny bit of glue towards the back of the flower and then just try to get the end of the branch right in the middle of that. It's even better if you can get the branch right in the hole that's left in the back piece that you made. That will really keep it secure. So try to aim to do that. That's another good reason not to have a big bulky end of the floral tape on your flower. We're just going to go through and add a little bit of glue to the rest of these, a little bit on the flower bud. Try not to glue it to my table. Here we go. This just takes some time, a little bit of patience, a little bit of glue. But then you'll have a really pretty delicate cherry blossom branch that you can use to start thinking about how to welcome spring. We're supposed to get a little bit of snow here. I'm on the East Coast coming up in the next week, which is nice because we haven't had snow in a really long time, like any measurable amount of snow. So my kids are still pretty into it, and I think they're ready. They would definitely love a snow day. That hasn't happened in a long time, so we'll see how it goes. Here we go. The last one wants to give me grief. The other thing about hot glue is your window of glue time is pretty small. You have to kind of just get it on there and then let it dry. This one is just being funky here. Come on. There we go. The other thing about these branches with the flowers on them is you can bend them and have them sit however you like. So don't worry if the flower's coming off in a direction you weren't interested in. You can always move those around and get them the way you like. There we have it. There are our cherry blossoms on our little branch. I hope you like this project. I will leave the information for all the supplies and the tools, all the links in the description box. Don't forget to leave any comments you have, any questions. Don't forget to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page if you'd like to give me a little bit more support. I always appreciate that. And I think that's it for this project. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.